Welcome, Young Investors Society. I'm James Fletcher, founder of Young Investors Society and portfolio manager. And in this unit, we're going to dissect what makes a good business. We're going to talk about concepts like economic moats, return on equity, competitive advantages, SWOT analysis. These are some of the most critical lessons that you will learn in analyzing a business. To start off with, we're going to kick it off to a video where I talk about what it was like to pitch a stock to my boss, HTC, and the lessons that I learned from that, and we'll also introduce this unit. Enjoy. What makes a great business? What makes a business a dud? Again, two of the most important questions for any long-term investor, and ones that we will answer during this next unit. Let me start with a personal example. One day, as an investment analyst, I walked into my boss's office and I said, "What do you think about this company?" It was a smartphone company based in Taiwan called HTC. I said, "Look at these numbers. The company is growing. They have great margins. Their cash flow is great each year, and a lot of other investors like them too. Plus, the stock price right now looks really cheap on a PE basis, trading at below 10 times PE. My boss said, "Okay, these numbers look good, but have you looked at the history of Motorola, BlackBerry, Palm, and Nokia? Why would HTC be any different?" He was right. The phone industry was a veritable graveyard of companies that were once big and had failed miserably. Thankfully, we didn't invest in HTC. The value of the company has dropped by more than 90% since that day as the company's business has floundered. But isn't Apple the largest seller of smartphones in the world and one of the most valuable companies in the world? What makes Apple different than HTC and the rest of the failed smartphone manufacturers? Why did Starbucks succeed while Circuit City went bankrupt? Why is Google such a powerful company while Kodak went belly up? What makes companies like Coca-Cola and Walmart so powerful decade after decade after decade? What you'll notice is that great businesses are ones that stand the test of time. They have what investors like to call an economic moat, which makes it very difficult for others to copy their advantage. They each have a secret sauce. In this unit, we're going to identify the common types of economic moats, the different types of secret sauces that great companies look for. You'll learn the economic moats of brands, network effects, high switching costs, and low cost advantages. Once you know exactly what to look for, it will be much easier for you to identify great businesses to invest in and to avoid the duds. As Steve Jobs used to say, one more thing. The people who identified companies like Apple and Netflix and Starbucks and IBM, that they had a secret sauce and they bought their stock early on, are millionaires and billionaires by now. We hope that you take the lessons we are going to teach you in this unit of how to identify economic moats of great businesses, and in doing so, you'll become the next generation of legendary investors. Okay, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I hope you enjoyed that experience of me learning about HTC. So I have a question for you. Think of a company that failed. Think of a company that you know of that either went bankrupt or just failed much below what was expected. What were the reasons why this company failed? Think about it and think about the reason why this company failed. We can think of a couple examples. Kodak, for example. Why did Kodak fail? Kodak failed largely because the technology changed of film technology in cameras, and Kodak was slow to adapt to the paradigm that changed in the technology, and very few people shoot pictures with film anymore. What about Theranos? If you've heard of Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes's company, why did Theranos fail? Theranos failed because of unethical decisions where there was falsified clinical trials and over-marketed products, and eventually these unethical practices came to light and the company failed. There are many reasons why companies fail. What about successful companies? Why do successful companies, some fail and some last the test of time? We're going to talk about this during this unit. First, we want to lead you to an activity. So if you want to start worksheet 3.1, and here you'll learn about the 4 most common economic moats of businesses. And we'll talk about it after the worksheet, but economic moats are competitive advantages that you're able to ring fence your business against others. The 4 competitive economic moats that you'll learn about are intangible assets or brands, high switching costs, network effects, or a low cost or economies of scale advantage. Good luck with the activity, and we'll check back after this activity. And I hope you enjoy learning about the 4 major economic moats. Okay, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this activity. Now, if you were going to create a company from scratch that had a strong competitive advantage or economic moat, what would this company be? So one example, which you may have done in your handout, would be a brand. If you were to create a brand that was so powerful, what would be an example of this brand that you would create? Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's longtime investment partner at Berkshire Hathaway, he wrote a great article about Coca-Cola, and he basically said, if you were to create a business from scratch that would be just immensely powerful, Coca-Cola is about what you would do. You would create a product that was addictive in nature, that had sweetness and a taste that would hook consumers, but then you would ring fence that with a brand and marketing and an aura around a business, and then you would grow global distribution so that this brand was found everywhere. And Coca-Cola is an example of just about the strongest brand that you can imagine created by a company. Okay, so how can we evaluate the sustainability or the economic moat of a business? So let's assume that we own a candy store, and this candy store is a good business. It generates good profits, and we are earning a high return on capital or a high return on equity. You'll find ROE or ROIC in the financial statements, the financial ratios of Yahoo Finance or other financial publications. And so what happens over time is if a company is able to earn an exceptionally high return on capital or return on equity or ROE, this means that this business is earning exceptional profits and is very attractive for investors and owners. And so what happens over time, economic theory tells you that if you are an exceptionally good business earning exceptionally high returns or profit margins, that competitors are going to see that and they're going to jump in and try and steal away some of those excess profits. And so law of economics tells us that over time, businesses will revert to the average and that competition will compete away those exceptional returns. So let's assume you have your candy shop and you are selling a lot of candy and you are earning exceptional profits for the rent, and maybe your profit margin is 30% and maybe your return on equity is 30% and you are living the good life and making a lot of profits. What will naturally happen? You will have competition. So competition will come in, they will force you to maybe lower your prices. Maybe competition will have more advertising than you and they'll advertise on TV or in the local newspaper. And all of a sudden, the amount of candy or the prices that you sold this candy for will start to go down. And over time, you are more likely to earn just the average return on invested capital or the average profit margins. And this is what happens to businesses at small scales or at large scales. Imagine a castle. Imagine you're trying to defend your castle from competition, and competition is nonstop. And competitors come in and they try and overtake your castle. How can you protect yourself? Well, if you don't have a strong defense, then they will overtake your castle and you will earn subpar returns. But imagine that you had a moat around your castle, and this moat had, sharks swimming in the moat, and it made it very difficult. And when enemies attacked, this protected your business and your returns. There are few companies in the world that actually have this exceptional advantage to earn high returns on capital, and we call this economic moats, that they're protected over time despite what competition does. And so what are these economic moats? These can be high brand value. These can be high switching costs that makes it very difficult to switch to other moats, such as a bank, which is a huge pain to switch from one bank to another. This can be network effect businesses, which means the more people that are on the platform, the more valuable the platform becomes, like Facebook or Google or Amazon. Or they can be low-cost advantages, that the scale of your business creates a scale that is just very difficult for others to compete with. This could be a large logistics business like FedEx, or it could be a manufacturing business like Samsung making semiconductor chips. We will explore this in the next meeting. We will go through the details of these economic moats. We'd encourage you to read the article found at the bottom on Kodak. Think about the demise of Kodak. Think about what led to its demise. And think about, if you want to invest in a company, how can you ensure that the returns on capital, or the ROE, will be able to maintain over time, and how you can create an economic moat around that business. Thanks for listening. All right, I hope you enjoyed that lesson. It's always fun to dive into business models and talk about what makes companies different than others. Let's do frequently asked questions during this unit. So the first one is, James, you mentioned the 4 moats, common moats. Are there other moats that we should look for as well? The answer is yes. So we highlighted the 4 main categories of economic moats. But there are other competitive advantages as well. Morningstar actually is the company that has put a lot of the definition around economic moats. They have actually added a couple moats over time. So one branch of the low-cost moat is a route distribution, a route density advantage, or a distribution advantage. So it's a version of a low-cost moat, but it's basically a business that has a significant route density or distribution advantage. Other moats that you can talk about are capital allocation, companies that are able to successfully acquire other companies and integrate these acquisitions into the business model. A company like Honeywell has had a fantastic track record, or Middleby, a good track record of integrating companies onto their model through acquisitions. And so that could be a sustainable advantage. So there are lots of categories, but what we want to look for is, does the company have something about it that's the secret sauce, that's their ability to fend off competition in the future? Second question we received is, do companies lose their economic moat over time? Great question, and the answer is yes. So in most cases they do. Morningstar, when they define economic moats, even goes so far to define there's a difference between narrow moat companies and wide moat companies. And a narrow moat company would have a moat, they're able to have high visibility, that they're able to earn returns that are exceptional returns for the next 3 years. So 2 to 3 year visibility would be a narrow moat, so you can keep off the competition for 3 years. A wide moat company would have visibility for 10 years. So you would have high visibility that 10 years into the future, you would still be able to earn, let's say, an ROE above 20%, returns on capital. And so that would indicate that this company has a strong moat. So there are different lengths of how long a moat is sustainable. Next question to answer, how do we calculate the return on equity? Great question. So I went over that fast while I was teaching it. The return on equity is calculated by the profits per year, or the return, divided by the equity, or the shareholder's equity. So if I'm a shareholder and I own the equity in that business, then my profits are how much the company generates in profits every year versus how much total equity there is, how much equity I own. So if the company is generating a 20% profit divided by equity, that means I'm getting a 20% return on that equity to grow that equity over time. So that's very attractive to get a 20% return on equity. The last question that we received was, does the ROE, does the return on equity, differ by the stages of the life cycle that the company is in? So does a young company, does a startup earn a different ROE than a mature company? The answer is yes. So startup companies are less profitable because they're investing in growth and expenses. Companies that tend to be growing very fast tend to have to spend to get this growth. And so what happens over time is the ROEs start low, and then they normalize and peak at the level which is your normalized margin and normalized ROE. The trick is being able to predict, okay, what the ROE will stabilize at. Is this a good ROE, maybe above 15 or 20%? And then is that once they achieve it and competition sees it and competition attacks that industry, what will happen to that ROE after that? Will they be able to sustain that ROE over time? And so you do see life cycle stages of ROEs in companies. But in a nutshell, a company that is able to earn an exceptional ROE and sustain this for a long period of time could either be late early stage, or could be a very mature company. Really what it boils down to most of all is what is the competitive advantage or the economic moat of that business, and can competition infiltrate their competitive advantage or their industry, or do they have a barrier that is keeping competition away? So I hope that helps.